Hello. Today we're going to look at the Endorphines ground control. The Endorphines ground control is a 42 HP sequencer for Eurorack systems. It's designed to be the ground control for your whole system, and it can do some very clever things. Namely, it has got 3 monophonic tracks and an 8-track drum sequencer. It is both MIDI and CV. It has CV outs on the top, but it has MIDI outs, which terminate in a little breakout cable that you get with it. So you can use this to sequence external gear as well as stuff that's in your case. It has a very clever extra little thing it can do, which is it can actually power your case too. There's a power inlet here, and if you have a kind of laptop power supply and this kind of ribbon, like a sort of micro Zeus style ribbon to go around the back of it, then it can actually power a fairly significant amount of modules. So it's both a kind of master super sequencer and it's also a power source. Now, I'm not actually powering my case with it, but I just thought I'd mention that because that's pretty cool. So it can really be the boss of your system. This is a kind of pattern-based sequencer, and it has up to 64 steps per pattern, and every single lane can be different lengths, and that includes all of the drums and all of the 3 sequencer lanes as well, so they can all be different lengths, which is really cool for sort of polymetric madness. You've got 24 patterns that you can have per track, and you can have 24 projects, which is a complete set of 24 patterns per track with up to 64 steps per pattern. So quite a lot of stuff that you can save in it. And the whole idea is that you would be able to have kind of songs worth of things, save scenes and move through them and kind of perform complete track ideas just using the ground control. Now, as you look at it, you can see there's a kind of 2-octave keyboard. This is not velocity or aftertouch sensitive, but it is an excellent way of just playing stuff in. It gives your system a keyboard and it lets you just play things. Lovely. With slides as well. And we can use this as a kind of input method. There's a variety of different ways that we can sequence. One way is that you can do 101 style, where you have it stopped and you enter the notes one after the other. Or you can record them live and you can edit them live as well. You can go in and like edit patterns and kind of mess with stuff on the fly. So it kind of suits the 3 methodologies, as it were. That is live playing, stopped kind of SH101 style, where you sort of program a sequence with rests and slides, or just editing it on the fly. There are a bunch of nice little performance things, like the ability to mute tracks on and off with these little like pads, so you can mute all of the drum lanes individually and your 3 kind of sequencer lanes. And there's other stuff in there, like it's an arpeggiator, and you can actually record the arpeggiator to the sequencer memory, so you can use it as a way of coming up with ideas. If you look really carefully, you can maybe see that there's like arpeggio, pattern shift, direction, mod out, shuffle, probability, ratchets. So there are other kind of little details that you can add to the sequence, and you access them by holding button combinations like tempo, and D lets us change the direction, forward, reverse, pendulum, random. So it is quite shifty. There are lots of little shifty codes that you remember in order to just access the various like deeper sequencing kind of capabilities. As a final thing, you've also got some CV inputs here, and you can use them to modulate things that happen. So like creating octave shifts or things like that. And there is scale quantization with tempo and N for scale. And in so doing, You can pick different scales, major, minor, Lydian, and other things, including custom, and you can disengage steps and create your own custom scales like that. All your heart could desire, n'est-ce pas? As a final sweet little detail, you see here you've got like USB inputs and outputs. This allows us to plug host-like controller keyboards into the ground control, things like Arpeggiator key steps and stuff, and actually play into the sequence or receive data from it. And I must say, there are a lot of shifty things in the UI, but the upshot of that is it does a lot. You know, you can really bang out ideas quickly with this, and what's lovely and what I'm really enjoying is what you see here, this kind of idea of a groovebox system with 3 different voices and some drums from the Squid sample, and this ability to just make whole track ideas on this one little thing. You know, it would be impossible for me to fit the sequencing capability of this with discrete modules in this size of case. So it allows you to put together small systems that you can do a lot with, and you can obviously then save scenes. And while there isn't a kind of song mode per se, it does have pattern chaining. So once you've saved out variations or all the patterns that would make your track, you can chain between them and, you know, make longer loops or make whole arrangements in that sort of way. Or just use this as a kind of repository for all of the sequences that make up your live set, for example, or tunes that you're writing. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of what it does. Next up, let's actually make some music, shall we? So my setup here consists of a few different things. I've got 3 different voices. Voice 1 is the the Buckler Tip Top 258 going through the Ultrafold from SSF and WMD, and the 2040 filter. Good grief. Here's my envelopes from the quad function generator. That's one voice. And then the second voice is the venerable little A111-6 from Dupfer, which I did a video of recently. And I'm running it through the herb verb. And then voice 3 rings through ripples, also going through the herb verb. So it's Buckler A111-6 rings, and then drums, that would be the Squid sample. And you see what I did there? I pushed these like inner buttons here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Mate. And so that is triggering the Squid sample from ALM, which is wonderful in this case. It's just literally, in this case, it's wonderful because you've just got 8 different things, 8 drum voices. And so to get a sequence going, I hit play. You can hear that I've actually got something going on already. And so there's lots of different ways that we can play it. If I just tap record, and if I want to have a different length, I hold last step and I click on this one. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and so forth. Let go. Now I've got a 24-step pattern on track 1 of my drums. So all of the drums can have different lengths. Very nice. This one's 2. That seems not very generous. And then let's try 3. What we got? 16. Let's have more. If I hold this plus, I get single increments, but if I push the pattern page buttons, these ones here, I get 16-step increments. Really nice. So you start to get this whole polymetric thing because we've got different lengths. Maybe I'll find one with slightly more kind of obvious influence on what we're doing. Let's try 8, shall we? That last step. And let's make it an odd. And then let's do the same thing on the mute. Do you see that? So we can mute the drums. Really cool. So this ability to jam polymetrically is really lovely. You will perhaps be reminded of the BeatStep Pro. That is definitely an inspiration for this, because Julia Bondar from Endorphins, I think, is big into the BeatStep Pro, and it's kind of a evolved version, you know. It's not a BeatStep Pro, that's for sure. It's its own little thing. Yeah. I mean, it feels good. Just go with it. So you see, very quickly we can get ideas going. It's very instantaneous, and in this mode where I just tap record, it's like a live playback, and yeah, lovely. But you might be thinking, I'm not really a live player, and I'm certainly not, so I'd like to like program things. How does that work exactly? Well, let's try the 101 style, which is another way of sequencing on this little thing. And if I want to clear something on a particular channel, I hold this little kind of asterisk and I push the corresponding mute button. And that basically clears that channel. In fact, I can keep this right finger held down and just slowly move through things and just clear things on command. So now, nothing. Nothing at all. So what I might like to do is, if we're doing 101 style, let's use our kind of 101E voice, which is the 111-6. And then what you do is, with it stopped, you hold record, and you can enter rests and glides. Rests you do with tempo, and glides you do by holding two notes together. Tempo. Tempo. Let's try that. Pretty batty. And so I might want to redo bits of that, change it on the fly, and I could obviously hit record, and if I tap it while it's recording, I can now play this in. But I can also edit the sequence. And you do this by putting it into a sort of edit mode, which is by holding down the record button. So let's get it going again. And we'll hold this down. Now we're in edit mode. So it shows us step by step, and we then move through the steps. That's That's very nice, isn't it? So in this way, you can approach the sequence in a variety of different ways. Play it live, or you can stop and hit record and do the one-on-one style thing, or you can just hold this down until you go into edit mode, and then you can like fine-tune and finesse. That deserves something else. If I select the drum, we can do the same thing. We were hitting record, but if we hold that down, so the way this works is a little bit freaky if you're used to very like trad, zoxy sort of input methodology, because you have got 16 steps. And at the moment, by the way, I should actually make this 16 step. Do you see where it's going? Because of the placement of this, we use these central buttons to select the sound that we're going to edit. And so the little chase counter jumps up here because actually the second step is up here, and then this last penultimate step is up here as well. So you just got to get your head around that. But you see this little black markers to show you where the sort of every fourth beat is. Lovely. So there are modifiers that we can apply to channels, and one of them is octave shifting. So if we were to sort of select the channel here, if I hold this, and then we can do other modifiers to it. So we are able to like shift the direction. So if I come down here, reverse, pendulum. Quite nice. And then we've got probability, which is an interesting one. If we increase probability, it's the probability that notes will get dropped. So we're penduluming the melody whilst also dropping notes probabilistically based on a percentage from 0 to 100%, the likelihood that a note will be dropped. And then we can also do ratchets. So if I hold down the record, we come into edit mode, and if I pick a note, I can ratchet the note by holding these. And if I come down here and go to ratchets, you can change the amount of them from 1 to 4, and then forward, which is going to add a ratchet every time it loops around. And then random, a random ratchet. So So you might like to have like a sort of roller thing going on, like a steady 16th thing here on the channel 8. And so we can do this with the Arpeggiator, which are these little funky little buttons here. Like this. Nice. So that in a nutshell, and obviously with lots of little details and useful things like the modulation and MIDI and all these other things that are left unexplored in this video, is kind of it in a nutshell. But to play us out, as it were, I would like to do a little jam, because I think for me, like, what is really interesting here is that idea of having multiple patterns, being able to chain together things and make more considered arrangements. I've just had a little jam here and come up with some different patterns, definitely not what I would consider a sort of fully fleshed arrangement, but hopefully it'll give you the idea that just with this thing, you can develop more fully fleshed arrangements with time and patience and creativity. It's very fast to bang things in. You can go in and edit things and fine-tune them unto your heart's content, and yeah, build up like a little library of patterns that you can bounce between and get more considered, progressive things than perhaps you would by just having single sequences looping around where you steer them. I love that too, but it's a different workflow, as it were. So yeah, thanks very much, and let's jam. Ratchets on the drums.